Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all very much for joining us on this beautiful day. I'm delighted to be here with Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, Kateri Callahan from the Alliance to Save Energy, Tom Quigley from Owens Corning in Ohio, and Eric Spiegel from Siemens, which has a great facility in New Hampshire called Osram, Sylvania, to talk about the importance of legislation that we are introducing today around energy efficiency. Senator Portman and I have come together today and over past months, in a bipartisan way because our nation's economic competitiveness and energy challenges are bipartisan issues that can't wait. Today, as families and small businesses face rising gas prices and tight budgets, there's an immediate need to take action on our nation's energy policy. The world is on the verge of the most significant economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution. This transformation will be built on a fundamental change in the way we produce and use energy. Millions of new jobs will be created in alternative energy, energy efficiency, and other forms of clean energy. But these jobs aren't a lock for the United States. They're going to go to the first countries to invest seriously in clean energy. China, Germany, and even Brazil are aggressively vying to lead the charge and secure these new jobs. A national energy efficiency strategy, like the one we're introducing today, can make our economy more competitive, it can start addressing our nation's energy challenges, and it can create private sector jobs today. It's effective, it's bipartisan, and most important in today's political climate, it's affordable. So let me be clear. I don't think that energy efficiency solves all of our energy needs. But efficiency remains the fastest, cheapest way to meet our energy challenges. Now, how do we do this? This is a broad-based bill, and we have summaries to hand out, so you'll have a chance to see some of the details, but I want to briefly go through the highlights of the legislation. Right now, buildings in the United States consume 40% of our energy, so we have a number of measures in the legislation to improve efficiency. That includes loan guarantee programs for retrofitting old buildings and model building codes that could make new buildings more efficient. The biggest barrier to these kinds of projects is getting the money to pay for them. Our legislation will make financing easier for homeowners, businesses, manufacturers, and state and local governments interested in energy renovations. Also in our legislation, we'll update home appliance standards to make your refrigerator and dishwasher more efficient. These provisions are supported by the manufacturers of these appliances, and they will save consumers about $43 billion over the next 20 years. We'll help the manufacturing sector become more energy efficient and remain competitive through a new revolving loan program and expansion of the current DOE loan guarantee program. And finally, we'll target the single largest user of energy in the country, that is the federal government. Common sense changes to the way our federal agencies use computers, such as switching off inactive computers and other techniques, will cut energy use and save taxpayers money. And we have a great example in looking at the Veterans Administration, which has already instituted these kinds of changes and expects to save about $32 million over the next 5 years. So again, efficiency saves consumers and businesses money. It keeps our country competitive in an increasingly global economy. Politically, it breaks through traditional regional divides on energy policy. There's not a state in this country, whether it's Ohio or New Hampshire, the far west, the deep south, that can't utilize the energy efficiency technologies promoted in this bill. And finally, these technologies exist today. Many of them are made right here in the United States, as you're going to hear from our business representatives. The cheapest fuel is the energy we don't use. That's why I think energy efficiency is so important. Now I'm delighted to turn the podium over to my co-sponsor and colleague, Senator Rob Portman.
Jeanne, thanks very much, and it's been great to partner with you on this important initiative. In talking about energy, my view is that we need to find more and use less, and this is the use less part of it. Jeanne has done a great job outlining the legislation and some of the ways in which we encourage efficiency. The bottom line for the U.S. economy is that this will make us more efficient, more productive, and more competitive, which will make it easier to create a job in America. It also creates jobs through some of these provisions. So there are jobs to be had in producing more efficient buildings and encouraging more efficiencies. And as Jeanne Shaheen said so well, our manufacturers involved in the appliance standards in particular are very supportive of these changes, would like to see them. So it's a pro-growth, pro-jobs legislative initiative in addition to dealing with the energy problem we face. You will hear from some of the business representatives in a moment. Tom Quigley is here, who's the vice president at Owens Corning, and also Eric Spiegel is here, who's the president of Siemens for the United States. And they will talk about the fact that this is also an interesting area because most of what goes into efficiency and conservation on the manufacturing side is made in America. So when you think about what goes into a building, Owens Corning happens to be in Ohio, which means it's of particular interest to me. But so many of those materials are not imported materials, but rather U.S. materials and based on U.S. research and development. So again, this legislation is important because it's, in my view, the low-hanging fruit in terms of dealing with the energy problems that we face, in terms of having us be less dependent on foreign sources, in terms of moving our economy forward with more stable energy pricing, but it's also something that helps create jobs and opportunities. There aren't a whole lot of pieces of legislation moving forward in the Senate on a bipartisan basis these days. I just got back from a meeting at the White House with the President on the budget issues, and we certainly have our hands full on dealing with these fiscal problems we face as a country. But there are areas we can move forward, and this is a great example of it. I want to thank again Senator Shaheen for working with me on this, but also thank the Alliance to Save Energy. Kateri Callahan is here. She'll speak on behalf of that group, but it represents companies and associations all over America. I want to thank Cal Dooley, a former member of the House and a good friend who's here today to support this effort, and so many others of you who have said, you know, this is an opportunity to put the partisanship aside and focus on something that can really make progress in terms of using less energy, therefore making our economy more efficient, more productive, and helping to create jobs here in America. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm Kateri Callahan. I have the honor of serving as the president of the Alliance to Save Energy. I'm really proud to be here today and a part of this important moment where we're watching two visionary and hardworking statesmen, the Alliance's own honorary chair, Jeanne Shaheen, and her colleague from Ohio, Rob Portman, reach across a deep political divide to put our country's economy, our environment, our energy security ahead of party politics. We're proud to have been among the many businesses and associations that have worked closely with the senators and their staff, and I want to mention in particular Trent Bowserman and Steve Kitteridge for the work that they have done on this, to create the Bipartisan Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act of 2011. Today we have over 45 leading businesses, NGOs, government agencies, and organizations who have formally endorsed the legislation and worked on it. In addition to those mentioned, we have AGA here, we have many companies, Whirlpool and others, all of whom have contributed to this effort. We believe that as word of the legislation spreads, that we will create a call from all regions of the country, from both sides of the Capitol and both sides of the aisle for swift enactment of this important legislation. Why? Because the bill saves consumers and businesses tens of billions of dollars, while also, as the senators have said, creating good jobs and bolstering our global competitiveness and our energy independence. The Alliance estimates that American households this year are going to spend about $5,700 in energy costs, and that's an increase of 25% in just the past 2 years. These rising costs are threatening the fragile economic recovery we have underway. When enacted, the Shaheen-Portman bill is going to take a big bite out of those costs. It's going to cut energy waste in buildings, in the industrial sector, in the government, and in the appliances and equipment that we use every day. This bill is not a message bill. It was carefully crafted by the senators to garner the bipartisan support that's going to be necessary to make it over the congressional finish line and onto the president's desk for signature. And while it's a real bill for real legislative action, its contents and its benefits do deliver a very strong message, and that's one that you heard from Senator Shaheen. It is that energy efficiency is the cheapest, the quickest, and the cleanest way we have for tackling our problems associated with our current energy mix and our levels of consumption. So again, we applaud the leadership and the vision of the bill's authors, and we stand ready to help them navigate across these deep partisan waters to see this important legislation enacted into law. Thank you.
I'm not sure I need to stand here, but I'll try to work with it. I'm happy to be here today to join Senator Shaheen and Senator Portman in support of this very important legislation and to commend them on their leadership in energy efficiency, which we at Siemens believe is badly needed in this country. Siemens is the #1 supplier of industrial technology around the world. We have over 100 manufacturing plants right here in the United States, and we're committed to creating more good-paying, high-technology, clean energy jobs in the U.S. And just in the past 3 years, we've invested over $500 million and created over 3,000 clean energy jobs, many of them focused around energy efficiency. Just last week, we announced over 400 new positions in sales, engineering, and field service jobs around our Building Technologies division, and more of these jobs would be created with the type of legislation that we're talking about here today around retrofitting buildings, lighting, HVAC, and smart metering, and many other areas, including retrofitting old motors and replacing them with new motor technology. The need to invest in our infrastructure is needed now more than ever, and this legislation will help move that forward. Just as a couple of quick examples, recently our Building Technology Division began conducting an energy performance contract project in Nashua, New Hampshire to retrofit BAE's headquarters. Through the use of our energy efficient technology, we're able to reduce the demand for energy by 20%, electricity by 25%, and water heating by over 40%. And this is just one of hundreds of these types of projects that we're undertaking across the country today. But we don't just recommend these projects to others, we're actually doing it ourselves. We recently invested nearly $30 million in our oldest manufacturing facility in the U.S. in Norwood, Ohio. And we've realized savings there of over $300,000 per year in energy efficient lighting and $200,000 per year in electricity and water usage. The manufacturing revolving loan funds and the electric motor rebate program introduced in this bill will help us and other manufacturers to invest more in energy efficient manufacturing technology going forward. And with the passage of this legislation, our Norwood, Ohio industrialized motor plant will see an increase in business and an increase in jobs, in addition to what we've already put in place over the last year. Again, I want to commend Senator Shaheen and Portman for their dedication and hard work, and we believe this legislation can help government, industry, and consumer save energy, billions of dollars, while creating jobs and making this country more competitive. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Quigley. I'm with the Owens Corning Corporation. I too want to commend and compliment Senators Portman and Shaheen for this fine work that they've done in leading this policy around energy efficiency. Clearly, we're at a critical juncture in our country's history, and I think now is the time. If I think back in Owens Corning, the company was founded in 1938. We've got 70 years of history starting our business in the state of Ohio, and we have stood for sustainability, innovation, and energy efficiency. And through that, we are fortunate that in this year alone, we were able to launch the greenest, most sustainable installation. We call it Green Without Compromise, EcoTouch. So we did put people back to work, we did invest in our facilities, and really it's the foundation for energy efficiency policy going forward that's going to be critical to the future of our country. As Senator Shaheen referred to before, when you think about energy efficiency and you look at buildings and homes in the built environment, 40% of the energy is consumed by buildings, 70% in electricity, 40% in greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, these are staggering numbers. We've stepped back as a company, we looked at the math and said, today we talk about oil, the price of oil. We could save over 1 billion barrels a year, reducing our imports by 30%, 2.7 million barrels a day, if we were just more energy efficient. This is a big deal. It's a big deal for everybody. So as we think through today about new construction and existing buildings, there's 129 million homes out there, of which 80 million are under insulated. We know and we believe that if we can get consumers just to insulate up to code, the average consumer would save up to 20% on their utility bills alone. So that's real money in their pocket every day. So with proper insulation and making states more aware about what the government is doing, we think there's a bright future. So today is that time. So we thank you for your support. Thank you for being out here. Now what we'd like to do is turn it over for Q&A.
Thank you very much, Tom and Eric and Kateri. Senator Portman and I would be happy to answer questions, and I'm sure we can get our other speakers to answer specific questions as well. Yes.
I'm already added to D-N.H. Please take my question. Can you give us an indication what the legislative path forward might be on this bill? Looks like the Senate leadership at all is on the direction to go to standalone measure or incorporate something larger?
Well, we've been working with the Energy Committee, and Senators Bingaman and Murkowski have indicated a willingness to bring the bill forward in committee for a hearing, so we think that's a very positive move. And hopefully we can get it out of committee with a strong bipartisan vote and get it to the floor.
No, I think it's important that both of us happen to sit on the Energy Committee, and that we have both been in contact with our respective leadership. And I commend Senator Bingaman and Ranking Member Murkowski for the work they've already done in this area. They've included some provisions that are similar to ours, one identical in previous legislation. This is more comprehensive. It brings everything together under the energy efficiency banner. But we believe they are supportive of our general effort, and the fact that they've made a commitment to move forward with a hearing is a great sign. Again, as I said earlier, there's not a lot of legislation moving on the floor right now, and we have some difficult issues to address that are very important on the budget side. But in the meantime, we need to move forward where we can, and this is an area where I think we can make great progress.
Any idea when the hearing might be?
We haven't
Nothing's
gotten a
good.
date. Yes. We have been talking to some House members, and we hope to have a bill introduced there. I don't have a current sponsor for that legislation. I don't know if you've got.
Kateri's got an answer, I think, about what she's
I
doing
don't
on the House side.
have an answer. We are working, and we have great interest. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to say yes. We are working with several members over on the House side. We're not prepared to give names, but there's been some significant interest, and very importantly, interest by Republican members on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So that's where we will go first, and we hope to have more news for you in the coming weeks. That's what I said. Republicans, House Energy and Commerce Committee, yes.
Yes.
Can you talk about how much this bill will cost and if there's any sources of funding that you see for it?
The bill is an authorization, so there's no dollar amount on it right now. There are different costs or different figures to different sections of the bill, but obviously the amount of money that actually gets appropriated is going to depend on where we are in terms of budget negotiations. They're not included as part of this legislation.
I will say, though, hope we're in agreement on this, but no, I will say that we are committed as a group to finding offsets
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
appropriate. And as the bill moves through the committee process and onto the floor, we'll have ample opportunity to look at those offsets and work with our colleagues, including the chair and ranking members of the key committees on those offsets. But we are committed to dealing with the offsets as we move forward. As you will see when you look at the legislation, it is very efficient in terms of the spending side. We have done everything we can to keep the costs low. The costs that are included here are primarily in the area, again, of providing incentives for conservation, including the loan guarantee program that Senator Shaheen spoke about earlier. We think those are critical parts of the bill. We think those are parts of the bill that can be offset by other spending that's not as critical to both our economic and energy security.
And the bill is designed to leverage private sector investment. That's why it's so good to have Siemens and Owens Corning here today to talk about the kind of investments that they're making, and to have incentives to encourage that kind of private sector investment really leverages the public dollars in a way that's significant.
Absolutely.
Other?
Does this bill happen to come up when you're meeting at the White House?
Everything else did except this bill.
I told you to raise it there. Come on.
This wasn't a topic of conversation there, but we do expect support from the administration. Look, when you review what the options are in energy, this is clearly the place where we can make immediate progress. I mentioned earlier it's low-hanging fruit. Why? Partly because, as was mentioned earlier, 40% of our energy is used in buildings, and there are tremendous opportunities to increase conservation there. Second is what we're doing in terms of appliances. Great opportunities there. And as Senator Shaheen has said so well, the private sector is very excited about this legislation, as you can tell from the organizations that are supporting us today. And by providing some incentives at the federal level, we're convinced that we're going to be able to leverage additional private sector activity and interest among the states, because part of this is providing this model code language to the states. So we think we'll have good support across the aisle and also good support on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Final question.
Yeah, we're reaching out on both sides and providing information to our colleagues, and I think we'll have a good bipartisan showing in the committee. There may be concerns raised. Any piece of legislation that's this comprehensive is likely to have some pieces that some members may object to. That's what the committee process is for. So we'll have a good hearing and then move forward to a markup soon, we hope, and then get it to the floor. But I think this is an area where we should be able to find consensus.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. That was great. That was a great crowd. I don't know if you all have a couple of, thank you. I don't know if you have a couple of minutes, but there's lots of people I'm sure that would like to say hi. And thank you.
Well done. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for telling you this is